but at least they are part of personality, then you can actually start spiritualize them, refine them, bring awareness to them, heal them. And no amount of spiritual work from old-time spiritual work can do that, to my experience, to my idea. And then when people, like you see a lot of gurus today that fall into, I don't know, sexual obsession, whatever, it's because they kind of denied part of themselves. So a lot of other parts grew, but that little part was just stayed the same, even worse. And then it kind of jeopardized the whole personality of that person. So I think therapy and spirituality have to go together today, and that's a subject for itself. But so now I'll cover the last subject before we do some experiment, and then I'm going to do a whole session which has to do with rebirthing, breath work and stuff, because that's very important for this. So the child progress have basically roughly, I'm not talking, it's just one system to look at it, but roughly I will take 4 stages just for our simplification purposes. It's much more complicated, but I just give it like this. And I'm using Youngian archetype psychology type of thing for this. There are many, many ways to see it. So the first stage is usually called the divine child. And that's actually have to do with the king archetype. The divine child is like the child which is special, because every child is really special. It's a unique gift to the world. He's a new wonder in the world and has its own unique gift to bring to the world. And that child, it's like immature king. He wants to be in the center. That's actually like the narcissistic stage, which is very healthy at that point. Because once he learns what is fully to be loved, if he learned right what is fully to be loved, he'll be able to fully love other people. But if he didn't learn what is fully to be loved, then he will not be able to love other people. And then actually he will understand that love has to do with control. He either be what is called a spineless person or even child that's never afraid to take any space, or he'll be kind of a little dictator kind of child that wants always to control everything. And that actually will lead to really big issues in his personality later. Either be a person who doesn't know how to define his skin and define his boundaries, to take space, or become like a dictator who's really offended by anybody try to, anybody who has talent or charisma or whatever, that in his space, because he's going to throw you over and take his power away in a way. So if the child didn't get in this stage of the divine child the right encouragement, the right guidance, the right attention, the right love, it will create some pathological flaws. However, if he does, he will learn how to respect himself. He will learn how to love others right. And as I say, the way we learn from our parents, the way our parents loved us, going to affect the way we're going to love ourselves and going to affect the way we love other people and our children and people who are with intimacy to us. And a lot of these people who are narcissistic, for example, they can be very nice to other people, which are business related, whatever, because these are far. They don't really, that come from a very conscious way how you act to these people. But when it be like people you have intimacy with, then all this mechanism will come out and you can become a monster. A person can be great and everybody thinks he's an angel, but the people who has real deep connections and become a monster, and that even make him even worse enemy in a way, because everybody say, why, he's an angel, you are crazy. How can you say your father is a horrible person? He is the best person, he saved my life 5 times. Yeah, you say because for you it's just like a theater, you make a theater, a great theater, he's a great actor in theater. But what he real self is not that at all, because that comes when it's not people who can leave him or can judge him, it's the people who have no choice but to live with him, which is either the partner or the children, basically, usually. So the first stage is called the divine child, and this is kind of the king archetype in its immature form. So if a child get to feel you are worthy, you have respect, your needs are met, you are the center of the mother life in that stage, he grows much better. And then you have the second stage, which is called the precious child. The precious child is like the prodigy. Is when the child starts developing all his talented outside in a very childish, still basic ways. But if a child is very encouraged at that time to bring out his talents and his thinking and his philosophy. Children have philosophy, and children are amazing in something. They're so creative sometimes. There is a very beautiful a story like this child see a person who is bald, and he say his head is barefoot. Something like this. So children can be very creative, and if if the mother, if the parents embrace his creativity, embrace his spark, embrace his intelligence, and give space for you to develop, it'd be great. But if they don't, or if they compete with him, who's smarter, father or you, or feel really threatened because the child thinks he knows stuff, and then he questions my authority, because usually the authority is really dumb, and the parents themselves feel very inaptable parents. So every time the child starts to think for himself and see reality in his own eyes, they're really threatened. Oh, you see all my flaws in a way, because they have their own problem in this sense. So they try to kind of limit it and criticize the creation of the child, the thinking of the child. And then the child can either become what is called the naive child. You say, my intelligence threatened my parents, so I don't develop it, and I stay a naive child all my life. I stay kind of a dummy, and that's one way. Or he can become what is called the know-it-all trickster. A child who wants to show all the time how smart he is, because he didn't feel smart with his parents, so all the time have to show that he's smart. And then he kind of a little con artist. He all the time trick people, all the time try to show how smart he is, and that also creates something which is not very good. And when he grow up, it can be big pathology basically, unless you bring conscious and awareness into it. And then the third stage is later.
Just the title.
הילד המחונן, the gifted child or the precious child. Then you have the level which is called the Oedipal child. Is the child that actually has the early activation of sexuality, for example. Usually the child fell in love with the parents of the opposite sex. That if you be Freudian, I'm talking now Youngian, it's not really important so much. The child is falling in love with his parents. Also in a sexual way, in a way, but it's just a stage. It's not exactly, it's very naive. It's not, let's make love with mother. It's not really like this, even though there are cases like this also, but the child see the mother or the father as a sexual object in a way, and this is how I actually learn how people of the opposite sex treat me and what value I have. And again, it's very innocent. It's not about having sex. It's just an energy thing in a way, that the daughter is in love with the father and so on. And if the child is growing in the right way, he's actually encouraged to feel. He's encouraged to be connected with his emotion, with his passion in a way, because it doesn't feel it's bad. When the parents feel it's bad, it's a problem. Then the child learns to cut something there, and then it creates also a lot of problems. For example, one of the basic aspects, it's either become like a mama boy kind of thing, which means the child is kind of the small child of the mother always wanted her love, is really addicted to her love in a way, or they're addicted to father love, like the father-daughter. It's like a child is addicted to the father attention and love. Or it can become the opposite. It become like the dreamer. A child is totally disconnected emotionally from the world, and is just living in its own little dream world. And that's also kind of not really the way it should be. And then the last stage is actually called the hero. And the hero child is a child who learns to rebel. This is actually just before adolescence, when a child develops his sense of I can do stuff, and I daring to try stuff and to be on my own. And that stage actually is connected to the warrior archetype. It's very important. But what happened? Like, let's say you have in Israel, you have a lot of this third generation Holocaust, parents. Fourth generation, doesn't matter. It's kind of programs that unless you put conscious and heal it, it's always there. So they're really afraid, the child will fall. Oh, no. The child learned that it's very risky to do anything. And then he becomes what is called a coward. He's very neurotic. He feels every little thing he'll do in the world will bring a catastrophe. Or that the parents also control. Oh, you killed your mother. You didn't come at 11 and not at 10. You killed your mother. Right? So there's these things. And then the child, instead of learning that daring is important, this is how a child learns. By walking, again, he fall and he walk. And he crash and he walk. And the child can do that. And then he go and raise his hand, in first grade and say an answer, and it's totally wrong answer. But if it's a good, gardener, whatever, she will say, great, and it's beautiful, and the child will feel encouraged to do it again and again, so on. But if he will be criticized, if he will be cut, it will either lead to a child which is like a coward. He's afraid to do anything. He never dared to do anything, so he doesn't learn, and then he doesn't become good in anything that is important for him to do. Or he become what is called the grandstander which a child always have to be super daring. All the time has to be like a bully kind of thing. Always have to show that he is the strongest kid and fight. Any kid will say something, he'll fight him. And he have to be like, always make riots. So that's also a very unhealthy pathological aspect of when that level was not met in the right way. Okay, so that's basically things. So what we're going to do now is basically a meditation that will go through these different steps. And then we'll see how we are there, and we see how we can have a tool to healing them. And the meditation we did before, the meditation of love and kindness, is very useful. Quote, what the kid, child, whatever, in each step actually lacking, if you go very deeply, if you go to the root, is basically right love. A love that really see it, accept it totally as it is, and then give guidance which is come out of compassion and out of clarity and not out of ego concerns, basically. And that has a lot to do with shadow therapy, and it has a lot to do with